So I was helping her out. She walked up to the front of the room, we're sitting there. I said, give it to me. Let's perform. Let me see what you would do. And the reason I say that is because you tend to perform the way you practice. Think about it, that's a Duncan nugget. You tend to perform the way you practice. So I wanted to see what she would really do in front of the audience. She walks up in front of the room, I'm sitting there, and she starts off, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I stopped her instantly. I was like, no. Now you're like, wait a minute, she didn't even get to her speech. Why did you stop her? I stopped her because, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good evening, or hey, how y'all doing? You know what? I used to start my talks off like that. I see a lot of speakers do it. It's not terribly wrong, but it's also not very exciting. Think about it. Chances are the person who introduced you, they probably got up there and said, good evening, how y'all doing? Or good evening, how are you guys doing tonight? Or anything like that. Or maybe there were 3 other speakers before you and they all got up there and said, good evening, how y'all doing today? Or how's everybody doing this evening? Or whatever. There are a lot of speakers who get up and start off with that type of a greeting, and it doesn't allow you to be memorable. So I stopped her instantly and said, you know, we can come up with a much more effective way to start off your talk. Now, there are a couple things before I jump into the few ways that I want to give you to have a great opening. There's one other way I want to say that you probably should avoid. So, you know, there's the greeting, how you doing, hello, and all this stuff, not good. But then there is the joke. No. If you want to tell jokes like that, be a comedian. Listen, it's usually not a good idea to start off with a joke. Now, notice I didn't say it's not a good idea to start off with humor. Humor is perfectly fine. A humorous story, something funny happened to you. You got a one-liner that happened in your life, and you know, you got a nice, funny way of saying it. That's great. I'm talking about a joke, you know, like something like this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know that times are hard right now. The economy has everybody down. You know, the unemployment rate is high. You know, it's just like the guy who got fired from the orange juice factory because he just couldn't concentrate. Yeah, right. Duh, it's not very funny, is it? No, nobody's going to laugh. They're going to go, oh, that sucks, right? It's horrible. It's not a good joke. Number one, the joke might not even be funny. Number two, people might know the joke, so that's not good. So avoid the opening of, hey, how y'all doing? A standard greeting. And also avoid telling jokes. Now here go a few good things that you could do. Some things that will wow them, knock them off, get them engaged in your talk immediately and make you memorable. Because the thing that the audience remembers the most is the first thing and the very last thing that you say. Trust me, it's called primacy recency theory. First thing and the last thing that comes out of your mind. All right, so here you go. Great way to start off. A powerful quote. Could be your quote. Could be somebody else's quote. It's up to you, whichever one you want to do. If I were starting off and I needed a quote, I would probably use one of my Duncan nuggets. I would walk to the front of the room and say, you are guaranteed to win once you defeat the enemy within, because it's all mental. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to talk to you tonight about the mental aspects of success. I want you to overcome that enemy within you and help you overcome self-sabotage and your self-defeating behaviors so that you can get whatever it is you want to get out of life. There you go. Powerful quote. You can start out with another quote like, be the change that you want to see in this world. That's Gandhi. And Gandhi challenged us to take action, and I'm here to do the same thing to you this evening. I don't want you to just talk about change. We want you to do, as we used to say in my neighborhood, don't talk about it, be about it. There you go, okay? Another good opening. So there's a quote. Start with a quote, powerful quote, then go into your talk. Now, if you want to say thank you, or after you say your quote, then you want to say good evening, how are you all doing? That's perfectly fine as well. You can easily do that. I could have said, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, change your choices, change your life. That's Duncan Nugget number 171, and I'm not here to tell you what you have to do. I'm here to talk to you about choices and creating more choices and options in your life. Now, how y'all doing this evening? Does that sound like something you want to talk about? You could do that. It's all right. Or you could then turn around and say, but before we get started, I'd like to thank the university president, or I'd like to thank so-and-so, or the CEO, whoever is out there. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great way to do also, okay? Great thing to do also. Now, the next thing that you can start off with is a fascinating fact or a staggering statistic. Case in point. 60% of all college students have to move back home with their parents after graduation. I'm here today to make sure that doesn't happen to you. This is what we're going to talk about. Then you tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. You know, the standard format. So there you go. A fascinating fact or a stunning statistic. Anything along those lines is just going to make them say, wow, you know, oh my goodness, I really need to listen to what this person has to say. Help you out great. Next thing you could use to start off. Well, you could start off, of course, with a story. Stories work very well. Now, if you're going to tell a story, you can't start out with some long, drawn-out story. So there's 3 rules for telling stories. Here they go. It needs to be clear, concise, and compelling. Clear, concise, and compelling. That means they need to know exactly what you're talking about and why you're talking about it. It needs to be concise because it's your first story, so just keep it short. And then it needs to be compelling. It needs to have some compelling message or enlighten them or give them some insight into your talk or make them really want to hear whatever else it is you're going to have to say. For instance, if I was standing up and I was giving a talk and my talk was on dealing with the fear of failure, I could walk up to the front and begin with a story like this. So one day, I was getting ready to walk up onto stage, and before I got ready to go up there, I was talking to one of the student leaders, and this young guy was talking to me, and he kept telling me about how he wasn't afraid of anything. He said, man, I ain't afraid of guns, I'm not afraid of snakes, I ain't afraid of lions, tigers, bears, nothing. I'm not even afraid of dying. And I said, really? Okay. I tell you what, here's my intro. Why don't you take that, go up on the stage and read it for me, introduce me. He said, man, are you kidding, man? I can't do you want me to get up in front of all those people like that? No, man, I don't do that public speaking thing. And I started laughing immediately. Why? Because this is the same guy who just told me he wasn't afraid. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody has fear. And this evening I'm here to help you get over your fears and develop an adequate strategy for conquering them. There you go. Clear, concise, compelling, and I told them what I was going to do, starting off with that story, all right? Could be a story about you. Could still be a story about anybody else. Could also be a story that's kind of like a story, but instead it might be more like a research case. So maybe you read something about some scientists that had this real interesting research study, and it relates to your talk, and you decided to get up there and say, you know what, a few years ago, scientists at the University of Pennsylvania did X, Y, and Z. Okay, then you can tell your little research scenario and then go into your talk. That works as well. So a story is good. The next thing you could do is you could ask a question. Just walk right up. They give you the mic, or you stand up on the platform or next to the lectern or the podium, and the first words out of your mouth are a question. There you go. How many of you in here this evening, by a show of hands, would like to retire as millionaires? And now, of course, all the hands are going to go flying up, and you say, great, because that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I'm here to give you some success principles, some things that you need to help you transform your expertise into cash. There you go. Real simple. I ask them a question, everybody raises their hand, I go into my talk. Then if I want to, I can thank the people who introduced me. Remember that? You could thank them and come back around and give a little talk or say whatever is going to be in your talk and then launch into it. All right, and then the last thing, one of the last things you can do, and I left this one to last because you need to be very confident, you need to be very good, and you need to be very engaging to pull off this last one. With the question, you kind of need to be engaging as well. With this one, you gotta be engaging. That is the action step or game. Action step or game, doesn't matter what it is. You can walk out into the front of the room and say, ladies and gentlemen, look at somebody sitting on your left and right and tell them, woo, we're going to have a good time tonight. And everybody listens, yeah, we're going to have a good time. And they're giving people high fives and it looks good. It gets them engaged, you know. Or you could jump out there and say, you know what, let's play a little game. Let's play Name That Tune. I'm going to sing a song. You tell me the name of the song and you start singing. Do, 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 do. Now, if you're sitting there with oldies, everybody's going to holler out reasons, right? And you're going to have some fun. It's a game. But you got to be careful, because if you try to play a game and nobody responds to your game, you look real lame, obviously. Or if you try to get them to do something and they don't want to do it, it's not going to work. One time I tried that. I tried to get somebody, a group of students who weren't really that engaged. They weren't very excited about being there. And I made the mistake of, instead of coming out, engaging them with a story first so I could get them on my side, I tried to run out there and make them do some high fives and hooping and hollering and stuff, and it didn't work there. Now, that worked great when I was at a conference where all the students wanted to be there. Oh, they were, let's give high fives. Let's say whatever you want to say. Yeah, I'm motivated. Yes, I'm successful. That's fine. But be careful about the action step and the game. That's all I'm saying if you want to do it. Now, Other than the one last thing that you can do is, of course, you could do a combination of any of them. You could take a statistic, combine it with a quote. Anything you want to do. You could take a story, combine it with a quote. You could take an action step, or you could take a quote, then launch it to an action step. You could do a question and then launch it to some action steps. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you are here tonight want to retire as millionaires? And all the hands go flying up, and you say, well, great. Look at somebody sitting on your left and right and say, hello, future millionaire, right? And so there you go. You got the little question, and then you combine it with an action step. You could also do a powerful quote or something like that. Ladies and gentlemen, Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see. Look at somebody on your left or right and say, change something. Or you could do that. Or you could say, you know what, be the change you want to see in this world. When I was 24 years old, ladies and gentlemen, I walked away from my career as a professional saxophone player to raise my youngest little brother. Why? Because I knew that something needed to change, and the only way that was going to work is if I went home and showed him that I was willing to change as well. I had to be the change, and I'm here to challenge you to do that this evening. So there's a few ways that you can combine those also. If you notice, every one of those openings that I gave you is much more exciting, it's a little bit more engaging, and it's more memorable.